Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be the start of a new series that I personally think that I know I want to start, and I hope that y'all would love to listen and read along with. So we are going to be reading an entire book of the Bible. The book that I've chose is Job. So Job is a book that I've always wanted to read, but I've never really read. Well, that sounds weird to say, but I get distracted and I just don't end up finishing it. I've already started it, but I'm actually actively reading Proverbs right now. I might do a series on Proverbs too, but yeah. So I'm going to read a chapter a day, and we're going to discuss it a little bit. So, there was a man in the land of Uz, if I'm pronouncing that right, whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. There were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys, and very many servants, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. His sons used to go and hold a feast in the house of each one on his day, and they would send and invite their 3 sisters to drink and eat with them. And when the days of the feast had run their course, Job would send and consecrate them. I said that right? And he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt earnings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." This Job did continually. So we're going to break down. So like my Bible is split up into sections. So I would like if y'all would come along and read this with me. So this is basically explaining Job. Who is Job? He's a very wealthy man. Very wealthy man. You know, 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels. That's a lot. I don't know how much that equates to today, but, you know, that's not a little amount of cattle by any means. And for then, you know, cattle was a lot more valuable. So, and, you know, but it's not that he was gluttonous in his, you know, in his riches. He was a very faithful man, you know, giving burnt offerings to the Lord, saying that it may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job wanted to basically, like, not baptize them, but a similar concept, if I'm not mistaken. Basically that he wants to praise the Lord in any way he can and do it weekly. Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil?" Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for no reason? Have you not put a hedge around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your hand. Only against him do not stretch out your hand." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Basically, this is saying that Job, you know, the Lord, Satan was trying to find people to come to him, you know, people that he could drag and, you know, bring the temptation to be a part of hell's army, for lack of better terms. That's what I'm going to refer to it as. And the Lord said, "Try Job. He is my, you know, perfect God-fearing servant." And Satan says, "Is that for no reason?" And God tells him to test Job. Now, there was a day when his sons and daughters were drinking and eating wine in their oldest brother's house. And there came a messenger to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them, and the Sabeans fell upon them, and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, The Chaldeans formed 3 groups and made a raid on the camels and took them and struck down the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was yet speaking, there came another and said, Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and behold, a great wind came across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young people, and they are dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job arose and tore his robe and shaved his head, and fell on the ground and worshipped. And he said, Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. And in all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. So this is Satan testing Job, taking away everything that Job loves. His family, his ox, not just oxen, but everything. Everything that Job has worked for is gone due to Satan. And Job, instead of giving in and cursing the Lord, he says, there's a plan, there's a reason, and his instinct was to drop to his knees and pray. This shows the strength of man, a man who believes in the Lord so much that even though his family is dead, he knows the Lord will bring him back better. Yeah, I think it's beautiful. It's very, telling of no matter what happens to you, the Lord will always repay it tenfold if you believe and put your faith in him. I think it's beautiful. This book is going to be like one of my favorites to read, and I'm glad that I get to read it with y'all. Let's see, how big is chapter? Okay, chapter 2. We'll read chapter 2. I was only going to read 1 chapter, but we'll read chapter 2. Again there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, From where have you come? Satan answered the Lord and said, Going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down it. And the Lord said to Satan, Have you considered my servant Job? Hold on. Okay. Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man, who fears God and turns away from evil? He still holds fast with integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without reason. And Satan answered the Lord and said, Skin for skin. All that a man has, he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face. And the Lord said, Behold, he is in your hand, only spare his life. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores, from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took a piece of broken pottery with which to scrape himself while he sat in the ashes. Then his wife said to him, Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die. But he said to her, You speak as one of the foolish women as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. By the way, sorry for the long pause. I was very confused because it literally repeats in chapter 2 what it says in chapter 1. So I was very confused. My apologies for the pause. But, Satan strikes him with, these body sores all over. And his wife turns and says, Why? Basically curse the Lord. And he says, No, let's not do that. Once again, staying strong in faith and not sinning. And when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. And they raised their voices and wept. and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads towards heaven. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. Basically, his friends know that he's suffering, and they come to visit him, and they see the state he's in, and they just breathe and sit with him. They're there to comfort him, and that's what good friends do. In a situation like that, sit there, comfort, try and just be there for your friend. Well, that's all I'm going to be reading for tonight. I hope y'all enjoyed. I'm going to keep this series going until we finish Job, and then we'll find another book to read. But I hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see y'all in the next video. God bless.